Okay, we were recording the very last lines for the movie. That movie. And this is Doofenshmirtz's last line that we're recording. And it's in the very end in a very pivotal scene. But I'm going to let you hear it, okay? We're recording. With what? So hopefully that won't give away any plot points or anything.
Phineas and Ferb is one of the most prolific animated shows of all time. Its reach and overall impact on animation and pop culture as a whole is undeniable. And as the years roll on, it's clear that Phineas and Ferb resonated with an entire generation, and now finds itself sitting in a coveted position of nostalgic bliss. Everyone remembers the show, everyone loved it. You can go on TikTok and still see Doofenshmirtz. And while the show did come to an end a few years ago, the show never did fade from our pop culture conscience. I mean, it couldn't. It was simply too big. It left too much of an impact. So as I was watching and saying goodbye to these characters, in the back of my head, I knew it wasn't the last time we would see them. And I was right. As the years marched on, the two creators went on to make an entirely new show, Milo Murphy's Law, which is incredible in its own right. And if you haven't seen it, you're sleeping on it, man. Weird Al's in it. You gotta watch it. And just as I predicted, we got to see our favorite Danville residents in a crossover special between the two shows. That was a real treat, but at the same time, I knew something bigger was coming. And that's when they announced Disney+. Phineas and Ferb is a huge franchise, and honestly, being in Disney's possession, it's a secret weapon that they can pull out at any moment. So it made sense when they were launching this new streaming service that they wanted people to use, they decided to pull more viewers in by giving fans what they've been asking for years, some brand new Phineas and Ferb, in the form of its second full-length movie, Phineas and Ferb, Candace Against the Universe. Now, I was beyond excited when they announced this, and that excitement has only grown as information has come out. And with the San Diego Comic-Con panel and the premiere of this movie growing closer and closer, I think it's time we break down everything we know so far, looking at all of the information and the trailers, and to break down everything we know about Phineas and Ferb, Candace Against the Universe. Now, with this being only a month away at this point, you're probably going to be inspired to rewatch the series if you haven't already in quarantine. I know I have. It's been very lonely in my home. So, we have you covered with as much information as possible. Here's everything we know. Like I mentioned before, this is the second Phineas and Ferb movie, the first being Across the Second Dimension. And if that was any gauge of how this is going to go, we are in for a wild ride. As Across the Second Dimension had, well, multiple dimensions, an actual evil Doofenshmirtz, and was overall a roller coaster for die-hard Phineas and Ferb fans and casual viewers alike. But while the first movie tackled multi-dimensional travel, this movie attempts to crack space. If you couldn't tell from the title, Candace Against the Universe, the basic synopsis is that Candace gets abducted by aliens, and it's up to Phineas and Ferb and the gang to bring her back. That's a pretty intense scenario, even for them. And looking at this movie poster, it's going to be a trip, as the gang will likely go across the galaxy trying to save Candace, who honestly in this poster looks like she's chilling. She doesn't look like she's been captured at all. There's also some super sick alien designs. I'm wondering who that blue person is behind Candace. That looks like a big character. Just speculating. Now, at first, this looked like an average rescue mission, but according to the plot, it's a lot deeper than that, because Candace actually ends up in a utopia in a far-off planet, free of, quote, pesky little brothers, which tend to make her extremely angry, so this is more of a utopia for her than anybody else. All of the original cast will be there to reprise their roles, which is perfect because this movie, chronologically speaking, all takes place during the original summer before the end of that first summer. So Doofenshmirtz will still be a villain, Perry will still be his nemesis. It's gonna be some classic Phineas and Ferb. Now, this is a pretty crazy plot that is deserving of an entire movie, but going to space is nothing new for Phineas and Ferb at all. We all remember the Chronicles of Meep, of course. That was a pretty grand galactic adventure, but there's also episodes like The Doof Side of the Moon, Meepless in Seattle, and other crossovers like Phineas and Ferb Mission Marvel that all took Phineas and Ferb out of Danville and up into the stratosphere. So although this takes place during the original summer, I'm sure this will be nothing new for these kids, who honestly at this point have been through some pretty traumatizing stuff. I hope they're okay. What's really unique about this movie that I'm really excited to see is that it seems to be focusing and centering on Candace. Candace has always been a main character and integral part of the show, but to have a whole movie focusing on her, I mean, she's the center of the poster, it keeps it fresh and interesting and will show us a whole new Phineas and Ferb dynamic, whereas before it always seemed like Candace was going after Phineas and Ferb, trying to bust them for whatever they were doing, at least early on in the show. Now it's up to Phineas and Ferb to go get Candace. That being said, based on the synopsis, I feel like they're going to throw a twist where they go to, quote, save Candace, only to find that she's happier on this alien planet. Now that being said, that's just going off the plot, but we do have access to 2 little teaser trailers that Disney Plus dropped, and although they don't have a plethora of information and they're far from a full trailer, let's go through them to see what we can find. The first trailer shows a pretty high-tech looking spaceship that houses Phineas Ferb, Baljeet, Buford, and Isabella, although they look like they're in a bit of a pickle, which again, these kids, if they're not traumatized yet, definitely are now. And while it's entirely possible that Phineas and Ferb could have built this ship themselves, I wonder if it was provided to them by somebody else. I don't want to get too hopeful, but having this adventure take place in space opens the door for fan favorite Meep to make a comeback. He is an intergalactic security agent after all. Back to the trailer, the next shot shows Candace at the edge of some sort of spaceship, holding a t-shirt cannon saying that it's her against the universe. Conveniently the title of the movie. Showing that even though she was captured or abducted or something along those lines, she is not going down without a fight. As the next shot shows her firing off that same t-shirt cannon, although interestingly enough, she appears to be on Earth here. There's shops in the background and the city, but of course the next scene shows her being taken away in a spaceship. Although this is a very interesting shot to analyze. Ignore the logo for a second. Phineas looks completely straight-faced that his sister is leaving in a spaceship, and Candace looks more angry than she does scared, leading me to question the nature of this quote abduction. But like I mentioned before, they're just very brief, so those are the only clips we have gotten. And that could be partly to do with the fact that this was announced more towards the beginning of Disney Plus, when they weren't as far along in production, although these promos have been posted on YouTube fairly recently in June and July. So let's take a look at the second promo they released. The first shot is Phineas and Ferb high-fiving in midair, and there's not too much to say about this because yeah, that's just Phineas and Ferb, and they're cool like that. And the next shot is Phineas and Ferb stepping out of some sort of teleportation portal. I'm not sure if this is alien technology or something that Phineas and Ferb themselves built. The way they're all walking in unison is also weird, and I'm just gonna call it out, Isabella's eyes are looking kind of weird. I don't know if that's just an animation thing, but they're all remarkably straight-faced. None of them are really showing any emotion at all. So this must be something they're used to doing in the movie. The next shot shows Phineas and Ferb with Phineas holding a gift. Ferb has some sort of cell phone device, and this actually lines up with the scene from the last promo when Candace is being taken away in the alien ship. As you can see in the corner, Phineas is holding that same present. That might explain why Ferb is taking out some sort of cell phone device. It'd be hilarious if a ship showed up and abducted their sister, only for Ferb to pull out a camera phone and take a photo. This next scene is really interesting because I was actually questioning how this was going to work. We see Perry the Platypus as Agent P with his hat on and everything, doing some sort of spacewalk on an asteroid belt, although he is getting knocked around, which is scary. Now this film canonically takes place before the end of the summer and is kind of just a one-off adventure, so I'm not sure if Perry's identity will be revealed. Though this next shot of Baljeet operating the ship with Isabella and Doofenshmirtz of all people sitting next to him leads me to believe that perhaps this will be another adventure where Perry lets down his alter ego and shows the gang his true identity for the sake of the mission. If anybody has experience with space travel, it's probably this trained super agent, and Doofenshmirtz's science skills will definitely come in handy here. I hope their two plots kind of connect organically in a way, because I find it hard to believe that Doofenshmirtz would care about rescuing Candace, though his ties to Agent P might be just enough to do that. This appears to be the same ship that Perry is being knocked around on. In fact, this whole sequence appears to be them running into an asteroid belt that throws off the ship, although the lack of asteroids in the spinning ship shot leads me to believe that this could be a different scene entirely. Again, there's not a lot here because they're just short little promos. We're just trying our best to piece it together, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Agent P and Doofenshmirtz join them on this journey. I mean, they're in the poster, and they're also main characters in their own right. It's not like they could do an entire movie with an A and B plot completely separate that tie in at the end. If they did, that would be sick, but it wouldn't really fit with being a movie. So, that being said, that's pretty much everything we know and have from the movie. There's one more piece of information we do know, however, which is whether or not we will see our favorite Milo Murphy characters cameoing in this movie. And the answer is yes and no, it's complicated. Dan Povenmire did an AMA recently where he answered questions about the movie, and he was pretty honest. And this was actually originally reported on by Phineas Flynn's Law. Again, full credit to them. Check out their channel for a deeper analysis and more in-depth breakdowns on the movie and just animation in general. But according to Dan, there was a line recorded by Weird Al as Milo was originally intended to be in the movie, but they had to cut him because his addition was too confusing to the plot. Because of his ability for everything to go wrong around him, it would have led to the viewer thinking that something that happened later on in the movie was just an impact of Milo being there instead of the actual events of the film, which honestly totally makes sense. Doofenshmirtz. Milo's a very hard character to cameo because his innate presence means something technically could go wrong. But that's not to say we're not going to see any Milo Murphy's Law character in this movie, because we got official confirmation that everyone's favorite trucker Ted has one line in the film. Hold your applause. I know, that's incredible news. I can't wait. I love the fact that if they were going to cameo anybody, it would be a character like Trucker Ted instead of like one of the main ones. And I'm really okay with this, truth be told, because if you want to see a crossover between these two properties, one already exists. So that's a scoop on that. And finally, the last piece of information that we know that I want to touch on is the fact that this will definitely be featuring musical segments. Of course it will. It's Phineas and Ferb. It will be accompanied with a soundtrack, and there will be, according to the creators, at least 9 or 10 songs in this movie. So if you're ready for catchy tunes to be stuck in your head for weeks on end, strap in. With all that being said, guys, that's pretty much everything we know about the movie so far, along with a little bit of speculation. Now, as for the future of Phineas and Ferb, I don't really know. I love the fact that when the time was ready, they were all able to come together and make a brand new Phineas and Ferb adventure. It has only been a few years since the show ended, but still, it gives me hope and leads me to believe that Phineas and Ferb is a property that will stay around for a long time in some form or another. And although I don't think we'll ever get a full reboot of the series anytime soon, specials and movies like this I feel will continue to trickle out for years to come, especially with a new platform like Disney+. That being said, we're all very excited for Candace Against the Universe, and we're counting down the days until it finally premieres on August 28th. But guys, as always, I want to know what you guys think about all of this. How do you feel? Are you excited for this movie? Are you not? Let us know in the comments down below. Tweet to us at Roundtable Vids or me at @RetroNemo. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more incredible cartoon content. As always, guys, I'm Nemo. This is the Phineas and Ferb Breakdown, and I will see you next time. Peace.